I know. So there's two opinions. The Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote about it, by the way, in one of his essays. And again, he obviously supported the idea of the Rambam. Let me present to you what I think might be a way to understand. I once shared with you the Chiddush of Rav Michal Ber Weissmandel. You know who he was? Personally saved probably 100,000 Jews from the Holocaust by having the audacity to directly negotiate with Eichmann. Eichmann offered 1 million Jews for sale. Do you know that? We only got about 100,000. His whole life, when he came to America after the war, he ate his heart out over the Jews that he didn't save. It's true. Roe Wallenberg saved about 100,000, and he was murdered by the Russians. Okay, so that still leaves about 800,000 Jews from that area that were exterminated, that could have been saved. Not that Eichmann could be trusted, because he took the money and still wanted to kill them. All right, so he revealed to us, he was one of the great minds of that era, rabbinic minds, and he revealed to us, he's the first proponent of the Torah codes. He was so brilliant, mathematically brilliant, Torah brilliant, that he was able to look at the Torah and decipher some of the codes that only now, with the help of computers, people can research.
We're related from
Oh yeah? It's Czechoslovakian.
He wrote the article about my great-great-grandfather, Rabbi, who was a great mystic and halakhic mind.
Wow.
In all the Gedolim books. Gitzi Weissmandel writes the articles. There is a connection between
Wow.
all from Slovakia, from the Chassid.
Yeah, there's
in that area.
Wow. Well, in your honor, so then what's the Menorah Effect? You familiar with the Menorah Effect? Okay, here's how it goes. He looked at the Torah as a whole, and he found that there's a pattern that looks like a menorah. And he called the Menorah Effect. What is that? If you count the 49th letter of Bereshis, from the word Bereshis, if you count 49 letters, you'll have a Vav, another 49 letters a Resh, another 49 letters a Hey, spelling out the word Torah. The same pattern exists in Sefer Shmos. The same pattern exists in Bamidbar, and this 49 letters skip. He was the first one that was like, working with this idea of skips, intervals that spell out words in the Torah. Everybody following me? If you take the Vilna Gaon was someone who saw in the Torah many, many codes and hints just because of sheer brilliance. But this was in our generation. He discovered this pattern, and in Vayikra, it's only 7 letters, and it spells out Yud Kei Vav Kei. There's no pattern of Torah. It's Yud Kei Vav Kei. Now, the final Sefer of Dvarim has skips of 48. Okay, now, add to this, why does it call a menorah? Because how many books of the Torah really are there? So we say, Chatzva Amudeha Sheva. There are really 7 books of the Torah. You know how? Because for Hibin So Aaron, right, so we have Bereshis, Shmos. We have Vayikra, that's 3. We have Dvarim, that's 4. But Bamidbar divides into 3 sections. The first part of Bamidbar, which is the glory of the Jews encamping and traveling towards Eretz Yisrael, up until Vayibin Soa Aaron, right? And the Aaron led them on the way to. This is all before what? All before what happened? Right, all the problems. And then we find Vayiyam, because Misaonim, the people started to complain. So we have actually 3 Torahs. The first immediate section of Bamidbar, the little Vayibin Soa, which is a small parsha, 85 letters. And then you have the final book. So there are really 7 books of the Torah. Okay? And
So why do we go with the
Bamidbar is a tripart sefer. It's a tripart sefer. We speak about Chavushei Torah, but only Bamidbar did Chazal see it as unique. All right. Now, 7 books of the Torah. How many branches of the menorah? 7. That's where Rabbi Weissmandel said, since the Torah is divided into 7, I noticed this pattern that is related to 7. 49 letter skip, right? That's a 7 times 7. The 7-letter skip is of Yud Kei Vav Kei down the middle kana, to which all the other ones point. So he looked at it as if the words Torah were pointing frontwards from Breshit and Shemot, backwards from Bamidbar and Dvarim, right, towards the center, just like the menorah points towards the center. And that was his discovery. So therefore what? There's something relevant to the number 49. And why in Dvarim is it only 48? And why is Vayikra it's only 7? So, to take him a step further, the Baal HaTurim says that the world is created with 7 planets. 7 planets. 7 planets. 7 Kochvei Lechet. The 7 planets. What shape are they? Which shape of the menorah do they represent?
Sphere.
The kaftor, the spheres. Get it?
That's buttons?
Buttons, kaftor, the buttons, the apples, the rounded apples. Perfectly round. All right? So the menorah connects to the idea of the Sheva Kochvei Lechet. It also connects to the 7 lands. Sheva Aratzos. The world is divided into 7 continents, whatever it is. And also the 7 lands of Eretz Yisrael that belong to us.
What about what you said in the beginning about the 7 wisdoms of the world?
I'm getting there. We're going to steering the plane so we don't crash. That's what the Baal HaTurim tells us. So it seems that there may be a connection between the study of these worlds and the wisdom of the menorah. Now the ancient world, I can't believe I didn't bring this with me.
Can I interrupt you for
Yeah.
a second? There's one Tehillim that's shaped in the menorah. It's a very strange Tehillim, where the whole Tehillim, the shape of it is a menorah.
Well, they write it in the shape of menorah.
And what's the reason for that particular?
It's one of the very first halachas in Shulchan Aruch speak about, they're called shivisis. Shivisi Hashem lenegdi tamid. That there's a mitzvah to keep Hashem's name, literally, to imagine the name of Hashem in front of you. Which name? Yud Kei Vav Kei, the name that's in the center of the menorah, which is basically what it means is the evidence of Hashem's, the Or Hashem, the Shechina, but really more specifically the Or Hashem. So that's why people make it into shape, so that they should literally remember like a Ner Tamid burning, but also like a menorah, which represents the Or Hashem. Or Hashem that goes outward or inward? Outward. The shape of the windows, which it goes outward, triangular. According to the Rambam, the light is shared like a cup being poured. When you want to pour a cup, if you want to drink a cup, you drink it like this. What if you want to pour? Hashem doesn't need to drink wisdom. Hashem needs to share wisdom. So what shape is the cup of Hashem? Upside down, like a triangle. Because there's so much wisdom coming, and it's coming out a little bit at a time, so as not to overwhelm us. But he's pouring wisdom onto us. And what's the main point, according to Rabbi Ber Weissmandel, is that all of these chachmos, Bereshis, the chachma of Torah, of the natural world of creation, beginning with Bereshis. You want to understand the world? Want to understand all the sciences and everything? You must begin with a belief in Hashem. That there is a guide, what do they call it? Guided creation. Most of the scientists now are arguing that instead of looking at the world only from the Big Bang, we talk about Hawking's and all the Kofrim. They say, well, we can explain everything without Hashem, But that's exactly the point of Menorah, that the wisdoms which represents the 7 planetary systems, the 7 planets, but also the Chachma. One of the great Chachmos is studying what? The movement of the planets. It's known as astronomy. It's one of the 7 ancient wisdoms. Does anybody know what else was included in the 7 ancient wisdoms? I can't believe I didn't bring that note. Who can guess? That would be involved in astronomy. Geometry, right, exactly. The study of mathematics was one of the 7 ancient wisdoms. They needed it especially to build anything because we didn't, right? The study of the earth itself, right? What else was something that they studied that's human, not just metallurgy? That would be part of studying the actual what we call geology. But let's talk about humans. What are humans? Mathematics is a human thing, but it exists in nature, right? Music, exactly. The Vilna Gaon said that if he wasn't learning Torah, the next greatest thing you can do with your mind is compose classical music. He says it's the next most godly act because it's completely ethereal. It's like what? Notes on a paper and it sounds. You can't even... It's very close to it. It's very high wisdom. And then there's a study of the mind of man. Psychology. Well, Torah is the base of everything.
Medicine?
Well, that's part of studying, biology. Biology, study of human biology. And then, of course, there is philosophy, logic. What the human mind can imagine. And which is really also which is really the big problem. Because since human beings have a capacity for logic, they would tend to want to just rely on logic. Right. Now, what I like to suggest is that the 3 shapes represent the following. You didn't hear this anywhere, but I'll put it out there. Based on all of this, I'm just extending the language. The cup, the gvia, represents divine knowledge, the knowledge of Hashem. Right? Interestingly enough, what is the Jewish symbol? 2 triangles, right? Man, here, inverted triangles. That there is a Menorah of Chachma that comes down from who? From the Avos. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. 3 Avos. A 3-sided thing, okay? And then there's the sphere. The sphere represents what we would call human wisdom, Aristotelian wisdom. Why? Because they studied the idea of perfecting things, taking things from being what? Deficient to being whole. There's a whole science, which I happen to be studying a little bit about now, called positive psychology. Positive psychology, like all psychology, human psychology, was based on the idea of gaining virtue. What Aristotle argued is that people aren't bad, they're uneducated. And if I educate them, they're going to be good. It's called telos. Eudamia, something along those lines. E-U-D-A-M, look it up. Anyway, it's the idea that I can take a person, who's rough, and train them to pursue perfection. That is what Aristotle's saying. Like a perfect mind and a perfect body. That was the motto of Greece, right? You're not so perfect, so you work on it. That's why they couldn't tolerate what? Bris Milah. Because that took away from them, that's not, man wasn't created like that, so it's not perfect. I mean, created, they didn't believe it. This was not man.
Or defective babies.
Yes. And who else killed defective babies, by the way? Germany. Germany was the greatest, most brilliant civilization of modern era. Germany was, Berlin was the capital of wisdom. It was the Athens of the 19th and 20th century, without a doubt. You know the thing from the Orach HaKadosh, where he used to say that the Jews think that Berlin is Yerushalayim. In the early Reform movement, the first thing that they did was chuck the idea of Shivat Zion. Serve God for sure, but right here where we are. We don't need to go anywhere. Later, the Reform hopped on Zionism as something, and now, of course, it's not fashionable to be a Zionist, anymore. So they dropped it. But it's, that idea. We do not need to connect to divine wisdom. We have our work cut out for us. We have all these 7 wisdoms, using our logic, using our art of persuasion, our language, our capacity for language. So I fancy that each one of the 7 books represents one of the 7 languages that can connect to Torah. Any guesses how? Well, which one is music for sure? Vayibin so our own, right? That's a song, right? Kuma Hashem. That's song, right? I really should read this to you from let me see if I can get the accurate thing here. Hold on. Anyone venture a guess which other of the 7 wisdoms are in the Menorah? Are in the oh, here it is. Okay. I hope it's this. Okay, great. I got it. You ready? Gracious, human logic, because it speaks about what? Eitz Hadas, Tov Ra, and the fact that Avraham Avinu was able to figure out the philosophy of the existence of Hashem. So Bereshis is the ability for logic, thinking. What does Exodus, known as Shemos, represent? The study of language. What? The Sefer Yetzirah would be more Bereshit, but Shemos is called the Book of Names. Names is language. Arba Lashonos Shel Geula. It's all about language. It says Moshe was Kvad Peh and Kvad Lashon, and then he ends up being able to sing the Shiur of Az Yashir Moshe. So it's man's capacity for language is what specifically divides us from the animal world, is that we're able to speak. So that's related to the science of, by the way, the science of speech means how to persuade people, how to speak, and also the study of language itself, dikduk, etc., the art of communication. The art of communication. And then the third book, which would be also Aseres Ha-Dibros, which is speech. All right? It's Dibur. So Vayikra would represent mathematics. Why mathematics? Because most of what Vayikra talks about,
The measurements of the Mishkan.
All the building that goes on in my it has to be mathematically figured out.
that's true. And it's also constantly speaking about tahor and tameh and rectifying imbalances. Most of what Vayikra is about is talking about, let's say, tazriya mitzvah. A person is sick. What do they have to do to get unsick? A person did a sin. What do they need to do to balance back out? So it's constantly about balancing equations. In other words, in inequities being restored. That's really what it is. All right, we're almost done. And then what about Bamidbar? Bamidbar, the first part of it would correlate to geometry because it gave us the exact shape of the positions of Klal Yisrael's marching in the desert. That's the first book. Then we said music for the middle book. And then the last part of Bamidbar would be biology and psychology because there's all the machloikasim you have. In Bamidbar you have all the problems. Korach, you have human psychology and the problems with it. Jealousy, and lust, and all the problems that appear in the end of Devarim. Okay, faith, and Devarim would represent. The last one is the cosmos. Why? Because it speaks about the future. Most of the book of Devarim is Moshe talking about the distant future of what's going to happen at the end of days, Hazinu Shamayim. So you could argue that the seven... What? Yeah, Az Yashir, that's true. And in the Shira of Moshe in the book of Devarim is Ha'azinu, is the ultimate Shira. Kisuli et Shira Hazot. Which is, yeah. So anyway, bottom line is that I want to suggest that the triangle represents godly wisdom. The sphere represents, which Devarim is the final piece of that, represents human wisdom. And if you put them together, you're going to get prachim. You're going to get something that flowers. But without that, what do you get? Death. Where did Athenian wisdom take them in terms of children and the underprivileged? And they killed them. Where did the brilliant knowledge of the Germans, which included all of the seven wisdoms and beyond, take them to build gas chambers? Without the connection to the human, the Torah, to guide the ethical choices, you do not have life, you have death. It literally adds up to death. Choshech, mavet. One perach, I thought that maybe that's why 22. 22 is the letters of the Aleph Beis, which the Torah was given in, so 22 triangles, 22 gvim. 11 is spheres, because 11 represents the Teruma of this world, which is why you have 11 components to the Ketoret. So the world is inherently a world of mortality and death. The Ketoret was the one thing that could overcome the Malach HaMaves, remember? Right? So the idea of the 11 components of the spheres will indicate that that's the mortal world, the world of mortality, human mortalism, and finally 9 for the flowers, because Tisha, Yarchei, Leda. Bottom line is misplaced, misguided knowledge, intelligence. Take this man who brutally murdered this girl. Misguided. He was taught something that's outside the realm of Torah. He was convinced by his religious leaders. He was convinced by his community. He was convinced by philosophy. He was convinced by language that it was a mitzvah to decapitate this girl. How it leads to death. Okay? Chachma, utilizing human wisdom, without Torah light, is death. Short and sweet. And Mitzvah Hashem, by combining to the Or HaChaim, which is the Torah, the world will then connect. That's the wisdom of light that we need to project out to the world. And Mitzvah Hashem, we should be successful. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.